Heavenly Stories.
There was once a man who had 2 sons. On the outside, his home seemed filled with peace and stability. His fields were rich, his servants loyal, and his heart full of hope that his sons would one day carry on his legacy. But beneath that roof, something was brewing, something that would shake the entire family to its core. The younger son had a restless fire inside him. Every morning he watched the horizon, not the farmland. He wanted the thrill of adventure, the glitter of cities, and the taste of freedom. While his older brother found pride in working beside their father, this young man grew more impatient with every passing day. One evening, unable to hold his frustration any longer, the younger son approached his father. His words were bold, almost reckless. "Father, give me my share of the estate now." It was shocking. In their culture, an inheritance was only given after a father's death. To ask for it early was like saying, "I wish you were gone." The request cut deep into the father's heart, but he didn't raise his voice. He didn't shame his son. With quiet pain in his eyes, he divided his wealth and gave the younger boy his portion. For the son, this was victory. For the father, it was heartbreak. Days later, the younger son packed up everything he owned. With a grin on his face and coins jingling in his pouch, he left behind the fields, the house, and the father who had loved him unconditionally. He didn't even look back. The journey was thrilling at first. Every town he entered felt like a celebration waiting just for him. He was no longer the farmer's boy, he was rich, free, and unstoppable. He bought fine clothes, threw lavish feasts, and surrounded himself with friends who adored his generosity. Music, laughter, and flattery filled his nights. But freedom, when fueled by selfishness, can become a trap. The coins that once made him feel powerful slowly slipped away. Each party, each drink, each empty relationship drained his fortune. The so-called friends vanished as quickly as they had appeared. His laughter turned into silence, and his silk clothes into rags. Then came a famine. The once bright cities grew cold and hungry. The boy who once tossed money into the air now fought for scraps. Desperation forced him to take a job no one else wanted, feeding pigs. For a Jewish man, pigs were unclean animals, and the work was humiliating beyond words. Yet, he had no choice. One day, sitting in the mud among the swine, the boy stared at the husks he was giving them to eat. His stomach growled, his pride crumbled, and his heart sank into despair. "How did I end up here?" he whispered to himself. "Even my father's servants live better than this." And in that moment of brokenness, a thought pierced through the darkness. Maybe it's not too late to go home. The younger son sat in the filth of the pigsty, his body weak and his spirit crushed. For the first time, he began to see things clearly. His pride, once so loud, had been silenced by hunger. His dreams of freedom had turned into chains of shame. He whispered to himself, almost in disbelief, "My father's hired workers have more food than they need, and here I am, starving to death. What if I go back? Not as a son, no, I've forfeited that, but as a servant. At least then I'd have bread." The thought grew stronger, pushing against his guilt and fear. His father's face flashed in his mind, not angry, not cruel, but weary, gentle, and patient. That memory was like a faint light in the middle of his darkest night. So, he made a decision. He would return. He would confess. And he would beg, not for love, that felt impossible, but simply for survival. The journey back was not easy. Each step toward home felt heavy with shame. His clothes were tattered, his body thin, his dignity shattered. The once proud boy who had demanded wealth now rehearsed words of repentance as he trudged along the dusty road. "Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants." He repeated the speech over and over, trying to prepare himself for the inevitable disappointment. What if his father turned him away? What if the servants mocked him? What if the door never opened? Meanwhile, back at the family home, the father had never stopped watching the horizon. Every morning he rose early, scanning the distant road, hoping for a silhouette he longed to see. Days turned into months, months into years, but his heart refused to let go. He carried both the pain of betrayal and the unshakable love of a father who couldn't stop hoping. Then, one day, it happened. Far off in the distance, the father saw a figure stumbling down the road. The gait was slow, the body broken, but something about it stirred a deep recognition. His heart leapt. Could it be? The father didn't wait. He didn't demand proof. He didn't stand tall and proud. No, he did what no dignified man of his culture would normally do, he ran. His robes gathered in his hands, his feet kicked up the dust, and his tears blurred his vision as he rushed to meet his son. The boy, startled, dropped to his knees. "Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son." But before he could finish, strong arms wrapped around him. The father pulled him close, embracing the stench, the rags, the brokenness, as if none of it mattered. The boy tried to explain his shame, but the father's joy drowned out his words. "My son," the father cried, "you were dead and are alive again. You were lost and now are found." The servants, stunned by the scene, rushed forward at the father's command. "Bring the best robe. Put a ring on his finger. Sandals for his feet. Kill the fattened calf, we're going to celebrate." For the household, it was a day of astonishment. For the father, it was the answer to years of prayer. For the son, it was grace, wild, undeserved, unstoppable grace. While music and laughter filled the air, another figure stood apart from the celebration. The older son, the one who had never left, was out in the fields. He had been working as always, faithful, steady, and obedient. But as he approached the house that evening, something strange reached his ears. The sound of dancing. The strum of instruments. The roar of joy. Confused, he called one of the servants. "What's going on?" The servant, barely able to contain his excitement, replied, "Your brother has come home. Your father has killed the fattened calf because he has him back safe and sound." Safe and sound. Alive and home. Words that should have stirred relief, maybe even joy. But for the older brother, they ignited a fire of resentment. His jaw tightened, his hands clenched. He had stayed. He had obeyed. He had done everything right. And now, this reckless fool, this traitor, was being celebrated like a king. Anger surged through him. He refused to step inside. Word reached the father that his older son would not join the feast. Once again, the father's heart ached. Just as he had run to meet the younger son, now he went out to plead with the older. "Son," the father said gently, "please come in. Join us. Celebrate with us." But the older son's bitterness poured out like poison. "Look," he snapped. "All these years I've been slaving for you. I never disobeyed your orders. Yet you never gave me even a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. But this son of yours," he could barely bring himself to call him brother, "this son of yours who wasted your money on prostitutes comes home, and you killed a fattened calf for him." His words were sharp, raw, and honest. He felt invisible, overlooked, betrayed by the very love he thought he had earned. The father's eyes softened. He stepped closer, lowering his voice to a tone filled with compassion. "My son," he said, "you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be glad, because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost and now is found." The older son's heart trembled, caught between pride and love. The feast carried on inside, the music echoing through the night. But in that moment, the story no longer belonged to just one prodigal, it belonged to both. Because sometimes rebellion is loud and obvious, like the younger sons. But sometimes, rebellion hides in the shadows of resentment, like the older sons. The house was alive with celebration. Laughter spilled out into the night, music rose from every corner, and the smell of roasted meat filled the air. But in the middle of it all, the true focus wasn't the feast, it was the father's heart. The younger son sat at the table, still in awe. A robe draped over his shoulders, a ring glistened on his finger, sandals now covered his once bare feet. Every detail shouted one truth: he was not a servant. He was not an outcast. He was a son again. His eyes welled with tears as he looked at his father. This wasn't justice, justice would have left him in the pigsty. This wasn't fairness, fairness would have pushed him to the servants' quarters. No, this was mercy. This was love beyond reason. Meanwhile, the father's words to his older son still lingered in the air: all that I have is yours. But we had to celebrate. Those words revealed something powerful: his love was not divided, not limited. He wasn't replacing one son with another. His heart was wide enough to embrace them both. In that moment, the parable wasn't just about two brothers. It was about something far bigger. The father in the story represented more than just a man. He represented God himself, the Creator who loves his children with a relentless, unconditional love. A God who waits for the runaway, scanning the horizon with hope. A God who runs to meet the broken, embracing them before they can even finish confessing. A God who gently pleads with the bitter and self-righteous, reminding them that his love is abundant enough for everyone. This wasn't just a family drama. It was a window into heaven's heart. The truth was clear: no matter how far someone had wandered, no matter how deep they had fallen, no matter how undeserving they felt, God's love was greater. He wasn't standing at the gate with arms crossed, waiting to punish. He was running down the road, arms wide open, ready to restore. And for those who thought they had earned his love through obedience, like the older brother, the message was just as piercing: you've always been with me. My love was yours from the start. But don't let pride blind you to grace. The story was both comforting and challenging. Comforting for the broken, because it promised forgiveness. Challenging for the proud, because it exposed hearts hardened by self-righteousness. In the end, both sons needed the same thing: the father's love. The story of the prodigal son wasn't told just to entertain. It wasn't a simple family tale. It was a mirror, one that reflected the human heart. Think about it. Haven't we all, at some point, walked away from the very love that gave us life? Haven't we chased after freedom only to end up empty, hungry, or broken? Like the younger son, many have tasted the emptiness of false promises. The world offered excitement, but it left behind scars. And maybe some of us have been more like the older son. We followed the rules, kept our hands clean, and tried to do everything right. Yet deep down, we carried bitterness, jealousy, or a secret sense that we were owed more than others. That, too, is a kind of lostness, just hidden behind respectability. But here's the incredible truth: whether rebellious or religious, reckless or resentful, the Father's love reaches for both. Jesus told this parable to reveal the very heart of God. He wanted people to see that God isn't distant or angry, waiting to strike us down. He is a father who waits at the window, scanning the horizon for his children to come home. And the moment we turn back, even with trembling steps, even with shame still clinging to us, he runs to meet us. That's the kind of love that doesn't make sense. A love that embraces before the apology is even finished. A love that restores identity, dignity, and hope. A love that throws a feast when the world would hand out punishment. But the story leaves us with a choice. The younger son came in. The father begged the older son to join. But the parable never tells us if he did. Why? Because the decision isn't his alone, it's ours. Will we step into the Father's house? Will we humble ourselves enough to admit our need for grace? Or will we stand outside, arms crossed, demanding that life be fair on our terms. The invitation remains open. The Father's arms are still stretched wide. And he whispers the same words today. My child, you were lost, but you can be found. You were dead inside, but you can be alive again. Come home. The Prodigal Son is more than a story. It's a call. A call to leave behind pride, shame, or fear. A call to return to the one who loves without limits. A call to step into a celebration that never ends.